Okay, that's his screen. All right, never mind.
Can you guys, can you see me and hear me now?
Yes.
Okay,
Can hear you.
fantastic. All right. Okay, so I'll get started then with our small group tonight. So the recording just started for people to come back, for you guys to come back, and then others to watch it. This, of course, is Track Wrestling 101. This is kind of our basic course that's going to outline how to run an open tournament. And in this event, actually, I'm going to be using the tournament called Open Tournaments 101. And we're going to use kind of the on-site registration process, block bracketing, and then we're going to use an assign to mat system. And that's we're also going to be printing bouts, so we're not going to do any electronic bouts stuff here tonight. And so this is kind of maybe the most basic of tournaments when you're talking like a youth type tournament. So so I'm going to get started. And again, if you guys, we'll keep this a little less formal, but just bear in mind that we are still recording. And basically all you're going to do is get signed into your tournament. So as you know already, I can click on this Manage Tournaments, and then I'm just going to log right in to this TWU tournament. And I'm going to use Open Tournaments 101. Are you guys doing okay there with sound? Are you having some issues?
Well, we're just using the phone still till we get the. He's got a speaker hooked to the computer, but this is a different one, and I haven't used it, so I'm not sure. But we're listening to you.
Is that okay? Do you want me to keep going or want me to hold up?
Yeah, keep going.
Okay. All right. So, and this is a basic, obviously you guys know how to log into tournaments, but I'm just searching, logging in as an admin, and then get to this page. So this tournament is pretty much a blank slate. It'll look just like yours do right when they come from you. So I'm not going to be importing any settings. You know, if you've done a lot of tournaments, like I know you guys have, importing settings is just fine. I'm going to start right from the beginning just to make sure we have everything kind of in order. The top menus, these menus are, I think, really important. A lot of people that ran tournaments quite a while ago only used this left menu because that's all we had. And so the left menu pretty much includes everything that you need to know, everything that you'll use. But as you work through your setup, your registration, your bracketing, and the operating of your tournament, you'll see that these menus get kind of pared down. And so if you're doing the registration, pretty much everything you need should be here. If you're setting up, everything you need should be here. We do have a lot of people that still just work out of this left menu, and there's nothing wrong with that. I personally just think there's a lot to look at there, even though it is all alphabetized. And so I definitely like to work through here. So I'm going to try and work in those menus too, just because personally I think it's the best way to go there. So one other thing too to mention right away is in the setup menu, you need to add other users to tournaments. I can go ahead and add an admin here. I could also add statisticians or workers from this same screen. So I would just click the button and go ahead and add those. A few left menu items that we won't necessarily cover in our other menus are just a few of these things. The direct link, if I click in the left menu and go to direct link, I can copy and paste this into, it could be in a flyer, maybe your web page. You could email it out maybe. Lots of different ways to do that. And this actually gets people, takes them right to the tournament as a viewer, so they don't have to go through that searching process and things like that. So that's kind of a nice feature, and some people kind of miss that or don't know that that's there. The other item in the left menu, a couple other items, media contacts. If I'm running my tournament, I can add a media contact here. I would select a team, which of course I don't have any teams, but I would see my list of teams here. And I'd put their email address in here, and then when the tournament's done, or even within the tournament, I can go ahead and email results to them. So you can add that. It could be media people, it could be coaches. You could add yourself, whoever you want.
Or if you had clubs, you could add clubs.
Absolutely. Yep, you bet. It would send. Yep, and you'll specify within here if you want it to be for a particular team, so you can kind of customize that too. So yeah, and that's what I always probably tell people to add themselves, just so they know what's coming back to them too. So it's that'd be the way to test it, just to kind of get an idea of what you see. But it's basically it's kind of box scores, I guess, results from wrestlers and overall placements and things like that. So yeah, kind of a nice feature there. Also in this left menu under print documents, this is pretty much, or these are pretty much all of the print functions that you would have. You'll notice that you see these printing options in these other menus, but it's just a few items related to, say, operating or maybe bracketing or registration. You can always get to all of those print functions from here. And there's a couple that you'll only find here. So if you're ever in need of printing something and you can't find it, just go to your left menu and go to print documents, and then everything is there. Kind of the old way, or prior to like a year or 2 years ago, I guess, all of the printing came through this menu, but now we've included it in some of the other menus. Separation criteria is also in here, and we're not going to work much with this tonight, but there are in the 102 course, we talk more about that. But the separation criteria, these come defaulted just like this: excellent, good, average, beginner. And then this priority is kind of how our system looks at it. So our system doesn't necessarily look at these characters or these values. It's going to look at those priorities. And when you're separating or even grouping, in our case, like we're going to look at tonight, it's going to look at this number. And so a 1, in this case, a 1 and a 4 are as far apart as you could get. A 1 and a 2 are close. So it just kind of looks at the hierarchy here. Again, these are the defaults that come in. You could add criteria by clicking that button, to add criteria. And you could also change the names of these. So let's say that you like this, and maybe instead of excellent, you have experienced or something like that. You can just click on it and change the name there if you need to. So again, by default, those are in every tournament like that. So if you want to delete them, if you want to change them, then you would come right there to do it. And then the last item here, and that we'll get to, is under statistics. And we won't be able to see much of this now, only because the tournament is, there's nothing in it. But I can go ahead and run some, I guess, reports on individual or team statistics. And basically it's in this list. And I can find, things like fastest fall, or, most team points, things like that. And so that's how you would go ahead and find those. There's also a team stats list too. So again, can't see much here right now, but if you, I hear your speakers coming. So now I'm getting
Is that interfering with you?
Oh, I can hear it. I can kind of hear an echo in the background. So is it better for you guys now? Can you hear better with that speaker on?
Okay. Was that interfering with you?
Not right now. I don't think I hear it anymore. No, that's just
Okay.
fine. Otherwise,
Fine.
if you want that speaker on and it's just, again, that was getting kind of an echo, I could always just turn those mics off and open them back up when you need. So are you guys okay like this? Because it sounds fine to me.
Okay, we're fine.
Okay. So yeah, just I guess kind of recapping the stats part here. I can either get individual stats or team stats. I could sort that by team or group. Again, we don't see a lot here. But that's kind of, if you have an old tournament, to go back in and just kind of play with those. Some tournaments give those out. Other times it's just kind of interesting to look at those things too. And the viewers have a similar function that they can go and take a look at as well within your tournaments. So again, those are just some items that are, I guess, more not as commonly used in this left menu, but things that are important, I guess, extra features in track wrestling that are good for people to know that they're there. So from here on out, I'm kind of going to run through this to-do list. I won't go along and open this up each time, but you'll notice that I did check mark one of these. When we check on tournaments, and when we have people, especially when we see people struggling, we tend to look here right away just to see if people have marked these off, and it's really handy for us to see where people are and maybe if something got skipped. But if you go through the to-do list, typically people do really well. But yeah, as you guys know, you just open those up. There's videos there. There's documents there. I'm going to be kind of working right down through this to-do list, even though, obviously I've, been involved with a lot of tournaments. This is still where I come. I always double check this just to make sure that everything gets covered. So again, I'm not going to open it up for every step, but it's basically kind of how we're going to move through the rest. And as we're kind of, heading out towards our tournament here, maybe a few weeks away, maybe even a month away, whatever the case might be, I'm just kind of planning, and planning is probably the most important thing that we see get overlooked. Making sure you know how many computers you need, making sure your internet connection is good, and those sorts of things. Making sure your printers work. One of the really hard things for us to overcome is when people just aren't prepared and they don't have a printer that works, or they don't, the computers aren't logging in and things like that. Just really good things to test. It would be like anything else you do. You just want to make sure that you're prepared on that end. And then the other thing that you can do, and I know that you guys that are in this course tonight have done this, but you can import settings. And I'll just kind of quickly run through this. I'm actually not going to import right now. I'll do this a little bit later. But if I go to import settings, I can go ahead. I can find another tournament that is just like mine in terms of format. So tonight I'm in an open format tournament. I can import from other open format tournaments. If I had a team tournament or something like that, I couldn't import from one format to the other. But I just click on the get. I'd go out and find my tournament here, and then select the items that I want to import, and then I could import them. I need to make sure I click this red item, or this red line of text there, just saying that that it's going to overwrite anything that you already have in here. I'm actually going to show you that import step in just a little bit, only because I want to make sure that we go through all the steps of setting up. And we do recommend the first couple times through even, setting it up from scratch, just to make sure that you know exactly kind of where things are ending up, how did the teams get there, why are the weight classes like that. So, and then the next step you want to do is just kind of review your settings. This item at the top, if there are, right now you'll see that I have the actual weight, skin check, and separation criteria. These are just data fields, so I can check on or off of these by holding my control key. And this is what will be included both in your registration as well as like where you see that wrestler information along the way. So if you wanted to adjust these, you could, and then you just go ahead and save those fields to include. So a common one that comes up would be, well, I want the actual weight in there, but I'm not seeing a place for it. Come here and double check. It's a great place to check. The settings page actually is a place where we look quite often if there's ever anything missing or not right. We come and check here a lot of times right away just to see. The other thing you can do from the settings page is change the name of your tournament or your location. That's just fine for you to do. The only thing you can't really change is the date of the tournament, and then for that you'd need to let us know, and we can make that change if that's necessary. So the date, the name of the tournament, all the address, things like that you can change. The other thing you can do is you'll notice that I have this Trackwrestling logo right here. It's kind of the TWU University. It's also the same one that will show up on this browsing page. Thought I had this open, but if I search for my TWU tournament, this is where you get this logo. If you don't select a governing body and you haven't uploaded anything, you're going to get this kind of generic Trackwrestling logo. Many of you that have governing bodies, if you select it here, you might see that. Or if you want to upload your own, I would just click this upload button. I could go browse for it and open that up. Basically, just open that up in the tournament. You'll see it on your tournament page, and then as well as if I hop back to our search page, that's where you'll see that logo there. So again, that question comes up a lot. Really simple to do. Just click right on there and upload that. And then the same is true for an event flyer. So there are some tournaments here. If I just go out to our home page, and I don't have a flyer uploaded here, but if I just go to our, I can get back to the home page. I go to the track menu, come here, and if I go to browse tournaments, you'll see that some of these, there's an event flyer. So this tournament, they're linking to a flyer here. You could also link to a website as well. And you would do that simply from this page as well. Just click the upload. You could just upload that right into your tournament. That's where you'd add your website there as well. And then you can add some other information here too. The governing body, if you have, say, maybe it's maybe your AAU or something like that. If you selected that governing body, then you would also be connected in that way too. So any of those governing bodies that are applying discounts and things like that, that's kind of the link back to that. So we want to make sure you get that set up correctly. And then the other settings along here, I won't go through all of these, but these are always places to take a look and maybe just kind of see what all is out there for you. I'm just going to kind of skim over them tonight, but what I will point out is that there are times where people will say, well, I'm not seeing what I'm expecting to see in, maybe my left menu or, setup menu or something like that. You'll see that right now that I have tie breaking right here. That's one that by default comes as no. So if I go to use tie breaking in my menu or in my settings, and I flip that to no, you'll notice that my page is going to kind of flash. It's reloading. And then if I come into my left menu, you'll notice that tie breaking is gone. And so if that's not there, if there's one of these other items that isn't in a menu and you're hoping to see it, I can just flip that to yes, or from no to yes. And then if I go back now, you'll see that tie breaking is there. So again, if there's ever something you're not seeing that you were expecting to see, the settings page is a good place to look. Flip that flag from no to yes, and there's a good chance that that's probably the initial issue there. Next up along the line, again, I'm just kind of following down through this to-do list. I want to set my deadlines. And so I click in the setup menu just because for me, I'm setting up my tournament, so I want to just stick to that kind of format. And I hit deadlines. In open tournaments, there's a couple of deadlines. The main one that we're going to use is this release information to public. And basically what that's going to do is that's going to release the wrestlers, the brackets, and other information so the public can see it. Basically just click on that. I can set the date and the time, and that's when people will be able to see. So sometimes you don't want to release brackets before you get started wrestling. Maybe you want to wait till they're built and then release them. You can go in and change those and save the date and time at any time throughout your tournament. That's completely up to you. The other item that's here is this lockout statisticians. Some of you use it a lot, more commonly used in predefined tournaments like high school type varsity tournaments. But statisticians are used occasionally in open tournaments as well, and it's something to at least run across. In this tournament, we're actually not going to be using them, but a statistician it's basically a team representative that's chosen, probably by you or maybe even the team. It's usually a coach, but it's actually that person that's responsible for entering the team's roster. So rather than you entering them in the on-site registration, or maybe you don't have a public pre-reg, if you're inviting certain teams, you could get some information to that team coach or that team representative, who we call a statistician, and they could go ahead and enter that information for you. So Varsity 101 covers that in pretty good detail. If there's more questions, it really doesn't apply to this tournament, but if you have questions on it, we can definitely cover that.
Shane,
So,
on the release information to the public, and we have is that releasing the pre-registration, or is that releasing who has entered the tournament?
So it kind of relates to both, actually. So on the so this right here is really releasing your brackets and your wrestler list from your tournament. But there is that part on the pre-registration. There's really two things in the pre-reg that you can release. One is the matrix, and that's a setting right within your pre-reg, like on that basic info page. And the other part is the wrestler list. And the wrestler list actually is tied to this, which you also see in your pre-reg. So you're going to see the same date and time, even if you have a pre-reg on that other side. So that's kind of a two-part question. It relates directly. In our case, we don't have a pre-registration with this tournament, so it only relates to my brackets, my wrestler list, if I come here and search my tournament to go look at it. But if you do have a public pre-reg, it is that wrestler list that will also get released, and that's the same date and time.
Okay, so if I do not want my brackets released to the public till after weigh-ins and stuff, then I click the same as the deadline then, the lockout.
No, actually, so the lockout is really only going to apply to your statisticians, and so those are really two separate things. Just think of this as your brackets to the public when you release that. This is when you want those team representatives to stop being able to enter and make changes to rosters. The truth is, and I don't think you guys use statisticians at all, if I am remembering correctly.
Right.
So this one probably doesn't relate to you. It really actually doesn't even matter, what that date would be in your case. But the one that you're most concerned with would be releasing the information to the public. If this is set for a day, like let's say I set it for yesterday, people could come in and see any information. They'd see wrestler list, who's on the rosters, and things like that. So if you don't want to release them until after weigh-ins, you'd pick the tournament date and then, 10 o'clock or 9 o'clock, whenever you plan to wrestle. So when you release to the public, it's pretty much, they can pretty much see everything here in your tournament as a viewer.
Okay, thank you. That helps me a whole lot.
You bet. Yep, no problem. Okay, so after we set deadlines, we're going to pick our bracket types, and that's in the setup menu, and I go to bracket types, of course. This is the list of bracket types that we have to offer. The lists in the open tournaments are slightly different than the lists in predefined tournaments. Some of them you'll see the same, but not all of them. It's not the same list. So if you ever think, wait a minute, I thought I used this bracket before, it could be that you're in an open tournament now and maybe you had a predefined before. But you can view any of these by clicking on the view sample. It just opens up, of course. And I can view that sample and take a look and find the bracket that I want. And then to add a bracket, I'm just going to add a couple of these to my tournament. Again, in the importing section, if you have a tournament that's run before, you can just import those. But I'm going to use this 2-man best of 3. Again, my tournament, this Open Tournaments 101, is going to be kind of your basic youth tournament. So I'm going to have a 2-man best of 3. I'm also going to add a 3-man round robin for my smaller groups. I'm going to do a 4-man round robin. That will kind of be my target. That's what I want. My hope is that every bracket is a 4-man round robin, but we all know that weight classes aren't always quite so neat and tidy. So in cases where I might have to have a 5-man, I'm going to throw a 5-man in there too. And so this is probably what we would hope and expect to see in a typical type tournament. There's a ton of different ways to run, but if you're looking for 4-man round robins in a block bracketed tournament, in a Madison style tournament, 4-man's my goal. In case we have a group that we need to add, a wrestler to, where we're going to go over by a bit, I'm going to throw that 5-man in just in case. And then I'm also going to include a couple of smaller brackets for, maybe there's real little guys or maybe some bigger guys that just don't seem to fit in good groups. That way we can at least try and get everybody as many matches as we can. So even though I'm hoping to use a 4-man, I'm going to add a couple extra bracket types just so our system has some choices if we need to. And we'll kind of get to how that all works in a little bit, but that's a pretty good way to set up, I think. And then once I get my bracket types done, then I'm going to add my groups. And so again, I'm going to come back into my setup menu and then click on this groups and divisions. And it's pretty simple. There's an add group button. I click that, and then I'm going to add my groups. And so I'm going to add, and I'm going to use age groups in this one. And actually, I'm going to be importing a few things from another tournament, so I'm going to try and match that just a little bit. But I'm going to add my 0405. I'm going to pick folk style, but again, you can, whatever style you're running here, that's just fine. My pre-reg entry fee, I'll set to 15. My on-site, maybe 20. And then I'm going to set my match length to 3 minutes. And we'll talk more in depth about what this number is and what it means. But also in the on-site, in the pre-reg entry fees, I don't really have a pre-reg. I added it in there. I wouldn't have needed to put anything there, but that's pretty common to how it might be set up. I mentioned this match length. I said that in this tournament we're going to be assigning brackets to mats. We're going to take a group of brackets, and we're going to put them on one mat for the whole day. This number is what our system is going to use to try and spread out the wrestling time on each mat. So this step is kind of important. It's going to be relative. So we all know that a 3-minute match, a 1-1-1 match, I mean, it could take 30 seconds. It could take 4 minutes by the time you get your wrestlers not showing up, or maybe you get injury or something like that. But it's all relative. So putting the actual wrestling time there will spread it out pretty well for you. So the actual wrestling time is pretty good. If I was 90-second periods, I would just put 4.5 there. So it's just in minutes, and it's a decimal type situation there. And then the other thing I want to talk about is the date of birth range. If you're using a pre-reg, you need to do that. In this tournament, I wouldn't necessarily need to do that, but all I would do to change that would be to click on these question marks, and then I'm going to enter my month. So I'm going to put 1 for my month, hit OK, and then I'm going to put 1 for my start day. And then in my case, I was 0405, so I'm going to go 2004. And that's going to be kind of the low end of my range. If I click the other one, I'm going to add 12, 31, and then I was 2004, so 2005. And so there's my date of birth range, and that's how you can check that. So anybody that has a birth date that falls in there, they're going to be placed automatically into this group. The truth is, in the on-site registration, you don't really need to do that. In the pre-reg, it's a nice feature because people just put their birth dates in, and they get placed in the right group from there. So date of births are really important in pre-registrations. And obviously, we're going to have other courses kind of covering just the pre-reg system, but that's how you make those changes if you need to. And now I only added one group here just because I'm going to be importing from another tournament just to save time here tonight. The team scoring part. Team scoring is used in open tournaments, probably not nearly as often as it is in predefined tournaments, but we'll cover this here to let you know kind of how to set that up. So again, back in the setup menu, and I go to scoring, and there's 4 scoring areas. So I'll start with activity points. And activity points are bonus points. They're the points that you get extra in the tournament for a fall or a major decision or something like that. And all I do is just click on any of these, and I can change that, and I save it up. And then this changes the team points. And so if somebody gets a bye, we know that they're going to get 2 points. If they get a major decision, we know they're getting an extra point. So again, bonus points, activity points, same thing, just different terminology. The other item on this page that's pretty important is for awarding bye points. And so there's a drop down here that's defaulted to this one, and it says that I'm going to award bye points to a wrestler if they win their next match or they don't have a next match. That's our default. That's what comes to us basically from the high school association, but that doesn't, and most people run that way, but you can change that. You could also award bye points to a wrestler regardless. So even if they didn't have a next match or they didn't win their next match, it's going to award them immediately if you use this option. You could award that only if they win their next match. So in those cases where they didn't have a next match, then they wouldn't get the bye points. And then you could also award those bye points based on the activity points that they get in their next match. So I'm going to leave this back at or. But in that last scenario, if I had a bye and then I got a major decision, I would actually get 1 point for that bye rather than the 2. So lots of different ways. Testing site's a good place to kind of play around with that. Most groups have a set of guidelines that they'll use there. And if you have questions on that, we definitely could help you out as well. The next area is advancement points. And we really don't have advancement points in a round robin tournament. So there's not a real good example I can show you here. If I had an 8-man bracket or a larger bracket, of course you'd have those advancement points for moving out the front and out the back. Probably get 2 out the front, 1 out the back, but you can change this. You can click on any of these and I can enter the amount that I want to put in there. I could also say that in my 4-mans, I could reset all these kind of in one big move here. So I could say I want to set bouts 1 through, let's say 1 through 4. Maybe I just want my first 2 rounds to be worth 1 point. You'll notice that there's 0 right now, but if I do that, this just tells me if I've already got matches going, I should recalculate the team points. But in our case, we don't need to do that. And this changes my advancement points right there. I'm actually going to set this back to 0 because not very common to have advancement points in round robins, but that's where you change that. And then also there are these 3 items as well again. So it's how you award advancement points. Do you want to award them if they win their next match or they don't have another match? Do you want to award them only if they win their next match, or maybe you want to award them regardless of how they do their next match? So you could make those adjustments right here. The defaults, again, I think the default comes in as or, but you could change that. And you'll do this for all of your bracket types. Placement points, those are pretty self-explanatory. There it is. These are just the points that you get for placing a certain place in the tournament. I click on those to change those as well. Maybe I didn't want my 4th placers to get any points. I could just change that to 0. And I'll also do the same thing for my other bracket types. So maybe I'm getting 14 for my 4-mans, but you'll notice that if I'm in a 5-man, I'm only getting 10 points. I might want to align those. So that's up to you how you want to do that. And then finally, scoring bouts. This is basically how you can go on a weight class by weight class basis. And you won't see weight classes in here now because we don't have them built, but I could go through and adjust this on a weight class basis. And again, in a round robin tournament, probably not something that you'll use, but definitely something that you'll want to keep in mind as you run tournaments down the line. Next item I want to do is just kind of check over my rounds page. Remember that I added these 4 bracket types, and then what our system is going to do, if I go to Setup and Rounds, our system is going to place the rounds and try and space out, go back up, it's going to try and space out the rounds as evenly as possible. There are situations where you might want to come in and combine certain rounds together, or maybe move these around, and you could definitely do that. I would say that in almost most of the cases, the rounds are going to be fine just the way that our system kind of auto-populates those, but you can definitely make moves if you'd like. There's a course coming on scheduling rounds, because the rounds page is actually a really important piece to the whole puzzle. There's lots of times where we're seeing kind of funny things happening with bout numbers, or maybe matches are getting assigned in kind of a strange way. The rounds page is somewhere where we look pretty quickly to see, kind of the cause of those things. So the rounds page drives how matches are, how they're assigned, how they're numbered, how they're scheduled, lots of different areas. So if you don't know what you're doing on the rounds page, my advice would be to kind of leave it alone and give us a call or shoot a ticket in, and we can help you with that. One other quick point on this too, you'll see that right here this says 1 bout per sheet. If I'm printing bout sheets, right now the way that I'm set up is that this is going to be 1 bout sheet on a sheet of paper. If I wanted to change that, I would come into this bracket type, I would click there, and then I could make that change right here. Maybe I wanted to go 2 for that one, and then I would just save it. So I'm actually going to leave that at 1, but you could make that change there if you'd like to. Again, the rounds page, we have another course that's coming on scheduling rounds. I think that's actually up in a week or 2 maybe, so that's a good one. There's some interesting things you can do there. Again, very important step. And then finally, I'm just going to add my mats. So back in the setup menu, I'm going to click on mats. And this is actually, because some of you actually will run tournaments where you might not even add mats. So if you're using a bullpen system, a call to mat system of some sort, you might not even need to specify to us or to Trackwrestling how many mats you're using. Maybe you just print the bout sheets and you have a way that you send them out there. But in our case, we're actually, if you remember, we're going to assign all of these brackets to a mat for the day. And so of course we need to tell our system how many mats we have. So I just click add mat, hit mat 1, and then I add that. To add another mat, of course, I would just click mat 2. Oop. Mat 2, and I add that, and then I would just go on down the line. We always recommend that you put the word mat in front of that. If you just have a 1 there, which some people do, oftentimes when you see that number 1 kind of out of context, people get confused as to what that number is. So just the word mat, space, and then the number is usually the best way, or a letter, or however you are choosing to number your mats. So at this point, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to import some settings to get this set up rather than running through all my mats. And so I'm going to or all my other settings with groups and those sorts of things. But I'm going to come over into import settings. And then I'm going to select this tournament that I know I'm going to be importing from. So I'm going to come here, and if I do type throwback, and then I'm going to look for this one. I'm actually going to look for this DC Evers throwback tournament from 2013. And so now I've associated with this tournament, and I'm going to import the groups. And I'm also going to import the mats. And I think that's all I need. If I was running a tournament with weight classes, which in this case I'm not, we're doing block bracketing. But if I had, let's say that 04, 05, and then I had a 50, a 55, a 60, I would import the weight classes too. And as a side note, if you're importing weight classes, you actually have to import those with the groups, because those two things are tied together. So I just click down here saying I understand that I'm going to be overwriting anything that I had. Click import and type import. And it takes a couple seconds. And then now when I go back to mats, I have 4 mats. And then if I go to my groups and divisions, you'll see that I have my new groups and divisions here. Here's the one that I added. I'm going to delete that out just because we don't need that. Having a hard time typing, but I think I got it. I must not have. Let me try it again. Delete entire group. Maybe I got it that time. And there it goes. So you just have to type that, and then that gets deleted. So here are my groups. These are the age groups, and you could see where importing was a big time saver for me there. And also the match lengths are there. Actually imported their pre-reg fees and stuff, which is fine. We don't really need that in this tournament. So the other thing I want to do then at this point is, now that I'm ready, I'm going to set up my number scheme. So I go back into setup and go to my number schemes. And a number scheme, that's something that some people skip, and there's quite a bit of confusion on this topic. And so this is something we just want to make sure everybody understands. And this really, one way to think of it is that a number scheme is really a system to add bout numbers to the matches in your tournament. And that's kind of a simplified way of saying it. But if you do skip this step and you don't add a number scheme, then each bracket is going to start with the same match ID number, which would be 1. And it's not specific to any particular bracket in your tournament. It's just specific to that bracket type. And so it's going to start with 1, it's going to continue 2, 3, 4, etc., and then number all the bouts. And what that really means is you're going to have duplicate bout numbers. So you're going to have, if you have 50 brackets in your tournament, you're going to have 50 bout 1s and 50 bout 8s and whatever the case might be. And so what a number scheme does, you apply it to your brackets after they're built, and you can potentially have a unique bout number for every bout in your tournament, which is really handy to find matches if you need to go back and search them. I think for wrestlers, for coaches, for fans, it's a nice way to make sure that they know exactly what bout number they are. You kind of know when your bout's coming and things like that. And you can set up multiple schemes. So it could be maybe that you want each group to start with a different number, have a different set of bout numbers, or maybe you want each mat to have its own set like we're going to do tonight. Maybe you have 2 different gyms. So there's lots of different ways that you might set up these number schemes. But we do feel strongly that you add a number scheme to your tournaments. You don't have to, but I think as a group here at Track Wrestling, we believe that everybody benefits from doing that. So in my case, because we're going to be having a new number scheme for each mat, and I'm just going to start mat 1 with the 101 and mat 2 with 201. I'm just, instead of adding this add scheme, which we'll cover in other courses, I'm going to hit this add mat schemes. And I'm going to type add, and I'm going to add a number scheme for each mat. And when I click go, it's going to quickly add these 4 schemes. And if I had 20 mats, it would add 20 mats. But in our case, it's just going to add those 4. And as I said, my number scheme, I'm going to start this one at 101, because that's mat 1. And we always recommend starting with 101 rather than 100, because that would kind of, and you can do whatever you want, but it would kind of be like starting with bout 0, which you probably wouldn't do. And so mat 2 at 201, mat 3 with 301, and then of course mat 4 with 401. So you just change those starting numbers, and you could start them all at 1. This is really nice though, because if I have somebody wrestling and they're bout 309, I know that I'm the 9th bout on mat 3. If I'm bout 220, I'm the 20th bout on mat 2. So that's actually a really nice way to do that. So again, don't have to do that, but that's a great recommendation, I think, and most people have good luck with that. And then I get to this point where I'm kind of ready to copy to testing. So I just come into setup, and I go to import settings, and then at the bottom of this page, I click this link to copy it over to testing. And this is actually just going to take a exact copy of whatever I have in my tournament, place it over on our testing site. And so occasionally we get people that are going in and testing on the live site, and that's just something that we don't want you doing, and certainly you don't want people coming into your tournament thinking that there's stuff going on there, and their kid missed the tournament or something like that. So the testing site is a great place for you to do that. And then it's going to look just like, you'll notice that I'm on the testing site. It's going to look like the regular site, only with this testing all over in the background. And then I'll just search for my tournament just like I do on the live site. And I am in Open 101. I'll go in as an admin, and I put in my username and password if I can remember. Yep, so I got in. And then now again, I'm just going to practice here. And the one thing that you'll do on the testing site, because you may not have wrestlers in here, I can add random wrestlers. And so if I come into the left menu, you'll see that there's a new item here that I don't see on the live site, and it's called Operations. So if I click on Operations, I get this drop down where there's a few different things, and I'm going to go to Add Random Wrestlers. And then I get this box, and so I can add some mock wrestlers, so I can run a mock tournament. So these are just kind of fake wrestlers in here. So I'm just going to put 100 wrestlers in. Not going to add them to existing weight classes, and this will change based on your setup of your tournament, but I don't have weight classes. Also not going to add them to teams here, and then I'm going to randomly assign the weights, which is just fine because I really want random weights, so I can group them here in a little bit. And then I'm going to add those to just 2 of the groups. So I'm going to add those to 98, 99, and then 2000, 2001. My weight range, I'm going to put in, let's say, 100 to 175. And I add those random wrestlers. And then now when I go into my wrestler list, if I come into registration, I can find that. You'll see that I have all those random wrestlers in here. The one thing that this doesn't do is add a team or a separation criteria. And so I'm actually going to import another way for our purposes to kind of show you. But this gives you weights. I could go in and I could go ahead and use the grouping wizard here, but I want to show you how we can separate team and then also use that separation criteria. So I'm actually going to do something that you may or may not do, but you could import wrestlers from a tournament from last year. So I went into setup, I go to import settings, and then I'm actually going to use this import wrestlers function. And I'm going to go back again, and I'm going to select my event. I'm actually going to use that event that I imported from, just because I can bring in some teams and things like that. So again, it's this one right here. If you had a password, or if you had a tournament in the past that you were an admin for, you could also do the same thing. And then from here, I'm just going to specify what I want to import. And so when I do that, I'm actually going to remove the weight class. So I'm going to specify here because I don't want the weight classes in there. So I'm going to use my control key and I'm going to remove that. And then I do want the actual weight because I want to use that in the grouping. And I also want the separation criteria. And so what I'm going to do over here on teams, I'm going to select them all. So I click on the teams, and this will help me, again, show you guys. And this is more for testing purposes now for this course. I'm going to import them from the 0203 and the 0405. Not all of them, just to save time. I don't need any weight classes. And then I go ahead and I type in here. I think this is the one. And I'm going to import. I spelled that right. And then now you'll see, I didn't give it a valid username and password. So I'm just going to check that. I apologize. I thought I had that correct, but I don't. Just I need to find this real quick for you. Sorry about this. I had that written down and didn't have it written correctly. I'm actually on another screen doing this real quickly. I'll be right back with you. Okay, so I'm going to try this again. I'm going to go into import settings, import wrestlers. Throwback tournament. I want to get rid of the weight class, get the actual weight and separation, do all the teams. I want to do 0203 and 0405, none of the weight classes, and I think I can do this. Let me try that one. Okay, that's better. Sorry about that. Been a long day already. And this page brings me up here, and I'm just bringing those items in. I'm going to upload those. And again, this is more for our for quickly trying to work with our tournament. So now if I go into my registration and go to wrestlers, you'll see now I have all these wrestlers in here, and in my 405, I also have a team. When I click on them, I'm going to have a separation criteria. So I'm going to show you how you can use that in the grouping wizard. So sorry for the delay there. So I'm at the week of my event. I'm obviously practicing on my testing site, calling us if you have questions, making sure that you're feeling comfortable. Night before your event, you're obviously going to go in and you're going to test everything out, make sure your internet's good to go. Schools, of course, have, sometimes they lock things down. Sometimes that happens on weekends. So we want to make sure that you got everything ready to go. But I'll probably be possibly printing my weigh-in cards. So I'm going to go into the registration menu, and I go to printing, and I go to my weigh-in cards. And so if I click here, I get to my weigh-in cards, and some people use these weigh-in cards, other people don't. I can sort by group and then maybe even by last name or maybe by name. And then if I go ahead and print the cards, you'll see that this brings up this page right here. I would go ahead and do a print preview, show you kind of how this looks. And these are going to be all the wrestlers that are already in my tournament. I landscape that. You'll see there's my piece of paper, and I would just cut these in 4s. These are what I would use at registration. My weigh-in people would go ahead and write the actual weight in there, and then they would bring that back to me, or a tournament, or somebody entering the data, and they would go ahead and enter the actual weights. This number that's right here, this is kind of a unique number within this tournament, and that's a way that we can use that in the weigh-in process in just a little bit. But that's the weigh-in cards. Close those down. The other thing you can do is print a weigh-in card template. So if you have those people that are coming in and they're not pre-registered, I go to registration again, printing, and then the weigh-in card template. And then I would go through and do the same thing here and basically print out some of these, and it's just a blank one that you can fill out. So those are a couple things that you'd want to have ready for when people are coming in. And then obviously when you get to your tournament date, people are going to be ready to register. And we recommend that you use a double check system, just because the data that you put in is critical to make sure that your bracketing is right, making sure kids are in the right group, making sure they have the right team, things like that. And so we're going to do that in, I guess, kind of 2 steps. So the first step of that system is going into the on-site registration. So I go to registration, I click on on-site reg, and then from here all I'm going to do is take those weigh-in cards that have been filled out, or maybe the weigh-in card templates, in my case, because I probably didn't have a pre-reg in this situation. And those are coming back to me, and now I'm at a computer, and maybe I have several people doing this depending on the size of your tournament. But I could select a default group. In my case, I'll just go 0608, and it's just going to default this in here. I can change it here if I want to. But I'm just going to add my wrestler. So if I have a new wrestler that comes in, I'll put him in as Clay. I know we're all Packer fans, so I'm going to put my boy Clay Matthews in there. And then he's in this 0608 group. If I need to add I could pick his team from this group, but let's say that he's a new team. I would just put Green Bay Packers. We'll put it there. Maybe I put the abbreviation there, and then I put his actual weight in as, let's say he was 99. And then I put his separation criteria, and I'm kind of a big fan, so I'm going to put him as excellent. And then I go ahead and register him. And you'll notice that it sticks to this, so maybe you're bringing all the 0608s to this one person, or they could change it from there. So I go through, add all my people that come into the on-site registration, and then the next step is going to be from this weigh-ins link. And you can also get there from this registration if I go to weigh-ins. Okay, brings you back kind of the same page, but I just would click the red link from there. And so after all of those are in, maybe you make one mark on that weigh-in card, and then pass that along to another set of people or another computer, and then those people are just going to verify that the information is correct. I could use that wrestler ID that we referred to earlier, and I would just type an ID in, and I don't even know what the IDs are, but if I put that in, I hit enter, it's going to bring up whoever that person was. I actually don't know the ID numbers of these people, so I'm not going to use that method, but that's a really good way to do it. But if I type a few characters of the last name of the person and hit go, it's going to bring up anybody with those. And from this point, I would say, okay, here's Clay. I would look at his information, make sure that he's in the right group. The 2 things to really watch are the group and that actual weight, because those are the 2 things that'll probably throw you off the most if they're incorrect. But let's say, all right, Clay, That was a mistake. Maybe he was 199, and I could save him from there, and that updates his information. So that's kind of the double check. One person entering the information originally, another person double checking to make sure that those things are correct. And so if they need to make edits, then they can do that. The other thing I could do in this case would be to just search that wrestler from here too if I need to make some changes. Again, you can just click on them and find them in that same format. Next item, after weigh-ins are done, I want to delete any of the no-shows. So you might have people that got registered and didn't show up. You obviously don't want those people in there when you're bracketing. We want to get those out first. So I go back to this registration and go to the wrestlers. And if I go to wait and I click wait, and then I click wait again, you'll see that it toggles these people. And actually, I'll give you a good example here. I'm just going to search again for, I'm going to search for Matthews. And if I find him one more time, let's say that Clay actually didn't weigh in. So we don't have an actual weight for Clay. I'm just going to take that out and save him again. And now from this wrestler list, if I click on weight, and you can actually sort any of these columns that you want to, but if I sort the weight, it's going to bring the heaviest weight wrestler, the guy that weighed in the most, to the top. If I click it again, it's going to go backwards. And you'll notice that here that anybody without an actual weight gets kind of filtered to the top of that. And so these are the folks that I know that I need to remove from my tournament before I bracket. So I could do a couple of things. I could check mark him and put delete selected participants. And that's fine if you just have one or two. There may be times where you have a whole group or maybe a team didn't show up and you want to quickly remove them. What I can do is I can run this delete no-shows function. And this no-shows function is going to remove anybody who doesn't have an actual weight. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, I think 0608 is where Clay was. I'm going to remove anybody that doesn't have an actual weight in that group. This is handy. I could click on or off certain ones of these. If you have different weigh-in times, maybe different sessions, you could delete no-shows from one session without removing them from another. But I'm just going to do that one. I hit remove. It's going to tell me that I'm going to delete all the wrestlers from that division that did not weigh in, and that's just fine because that's what I want to do. I'm going to type delete no-shows and hit OK. And now if I come back here and I look, I toggle this, Clay's gone. He's no longer in here because he didn't weigh in. And now I'm ready to move on and start bracketing. And that's really what our next step is going to be. I'm going to build my brackets. And in a Madison block bracket tournament, that's going to be different than if you had weight classes and if you're seating or doing those sorts of things. But I'm going to come into bracketing, and I'm going to go to the Madison block bracketing section. And this brings me to this page. If I go into, I'm going to look at my 0405 group. And you'll notice here, you'll notice that I didn't see anybody in 0608. It's because there weren't actual weights added to those. Remember, I only imported a couple of these groups. So these guys now have an actual weight. We have a separation criteria, and we have a team. And our system is going to try and group them together, using those, basically those three things. And I can tweak this just a little bit by using my grouping number. Said before that I was going to shoot for 4-man brackets, so it's going to try and create 4-man groups right here. I can change the weight difference tolerance. I'm going to put that to 12, and that'll maybe widen that range a little bit. And then I just go through and take a look. So I look here, and these look like pretty good 4-man brackets. The one thing I want to do is look for outliers, and so those are going to be those guys, and we referred to them earlier. This actually worked out pretty well. Your tournament probably won't be quite this on, just because these are kind of random data. But if I had one guy here that was maybe way bigger than everybody else, I could use this to either move them up or down a bracket, or I could actually move them up or down an age group. If I wanted to move, let's say, Zach Stites, maybe I wanted him in this bracket. I could click this one. That moves him down to this bracket. And then, maybe for some reason I wanted that to be a 5 and that to be a 3. I could move him back if I wanted to by clicking move him up, and I can kind of quickly move wrestlers around there. And then I'm ready to group my wrestlers. So you'll notice that I have check marks next to all of these groups saying that I want to create the bracket. If those all looked good, I could just go ahead and click create brackets. Let's say, for instance, though, that I want to use a 12% weight difference tolerance for my smaller guys, but as those weight classes get bigger, oops, sorry about that, maybe I want these last few groups to have a little larger weight tolerance. So I could just uncheck, I'm just going to do the last 4, I guess. I could uncheck those 4, and that's basically saying I'm not going to create these brackets right now. I'm only going to create the ones that have check marks with a 12% weight tolerance, and I click create. And now the only wrestlers left are the ones in those bottom 4 brackets that I had. And let's say with these guys, I'm going to bump this up to say 15%. And I'm only using these numbers just kind of, I guess, randomly. You can use whatever numbers you want there. And then I would go through, check these, say, okay, everything looks good there, and then I could create those brackets as well. I would move on to my next group, the O2s, O3s. I would quickly spin through here, make sure everything looks good, move guys if I need to. But I can create brackets this fast. I just click create brackets. And there I grouped and bracketed 2 whole age groups there in this tournament. So that's how you do it with the grouping wizard. Pretty slick function. Great way to quickly group and bracket wrestlers. I do want to double check to make sure that those brackets all got built. So I'm just going to come to setup. If I go to groups and divisions, you'll notice here that the 04, 05s are here. This is one of the groups, and I would do this for all of my groups, but for our case, I'm just going to click here, and it's going to show me that I have all these brackets built. You'll notice here, this is kind of interesting. You'll notice that there's 2 weight classes. There's an A and a B. It just so happened to find 8 kids between 50 and 53, so it made 2 brackets. So that's what you're seeing there. It shows that it's building what bracket it was built on. I had a couple of smaller groups here that got built on 3s, but most of them are 4s. And if I want to see any of these brackets, I can just click on it. It'll show me the wrestlers in the bracket, or I could click bracket to view that bracket from right here. So at this point, I'm actually, all the brackets are created. Now what I want to do is go ahead and assign those to mats. So again, in our tournament today, I'm actually going to be assigning brackets to the mats for the whole day. So I have those 4 mats. I come to operating and go to mats. This is where I'll do that from. The next step is clicking on assign mats. And I don't have all of my groups created here. But if I had all of them, I'd see all of these. It'd probably be a little longer. This number right here just tells me the wrestling time. And again, that was based on that 3-minute match length that I had in there. This tells me, there's 9 minutes in this bracket. There's 9 in there. There's 18 minutes in that bracket. I could quickly do this if this looks fine. I could quickly just save them all. But there are a couple filters here I just want to go through. The first one is this maintain order and optimize. Right now, it's maintaining the group and the weight class order. So this is going from little guy through big guy as we follow along. If I didn't care about the order and I just wanted to even these out, you'll see that I have 2 of these that are 1.8 and 2 that are 1.5. If I only optimize or just optimize and apply that filter, that actually spreads those out to the wrestling time. 1.5 and 1.8 is pretty close, I would think. But if you didn't care about the order and you didn't care if you had some little guys wrestling after big guys, you could go ahead and just optimize. I like to maintain the order. And again, that's pretty close. So in that case, I would go ahead and probably just save them all. The one thing, I guess, just by chance, I ended up with the 04, 05s on mats 1 and 2, and then the 02, 03s all on mat 3 and 4. Again, that's probably not going to happen in your case, but I can filter this to make sure that that happens. So let's say that, for instance, I don't want 04, 05s on 1 and 2. Maybe I want them on 1 and 4. So I can use these filters over here. So I'm going to select mat 1 and mat 4, and then I only want the 04s, 05s. So I click that one. Again, I'm looking at 1 and 4 and just this one group. And when I apply that filter, it's just giving me those 2 mats and just those groups. So I'd save all of those. It's going to bold them to tell me that they're saved, and then I would just flip-flop the filter here. So I would go mat 2 and mat 3, and then only that group. If I apply that filter, brings back mat 2 and mat 3, only those 02s, 03s, and I save those. And now when I just click this assign mats, and this just basically reloads my page with everything, you'll see that my 04 and 05s are on mat 1 and 4, and my 02, 03s are on mat 2 and 3. So again, when they're bolded, you know that they're assigned to those mats. And there's my wrestling time on those as well. And so that's how you assign those to mats. And that's a pretty quick feature. Usually you're just going to be able to go and click Save All and go from there. But again, practice with these filters in the testing site, and that'll help you out. The next item that I'm going to do, now I have my brackets built, I've assigned those to mats, and now I want to number them. And you'll see now that if I go to my bout schedule, which is a place that you'll be working from, none of these have bout numbers. They just have these question marks. And we're just using at this point just those match ID numbers that I referred to earlier. And again, those aren't specific at all. You're going to have a bunch of bout ones, a bunch of bout twos. That might be fine, but again, if you want bout numbers, which again we encourage, I'm going to apply my number scheme. So I just click on number schemes. I can find that in my operating menu also. And I'm just going to apply all of these schemes by clicking this button. In this case, I'm going to leave the frozen status as it is right now. I could unfreeze existing bout numbers if maybe I made some changes after printing or applying this, and I wanted to renumber everything, or maybe I could freeze certain bout numbers if I was making bracket changes in the middle of a tournament. But for my case, I can just leave it like that. I'm going to type apply. And then now when I go back to my bout schedule, you'll see that I have bout numbers. And if I look at just mat 3, for instance, by using this filter, you'll see that I only have those 300s. And I can tell here that on mat 3, I'm going to have 30 bouts. And as these get entered, it'll show me how many bouts I have left and how many are completed. And so that's how you can do that. And so the bout schedule obviously is a place that most of you are going to be working from. And if not, you should become familiar with that. From this same page, if I go to all mats again, from this same page, I'm going to print my brackets. And so I can do this from operating, printing, brackets. I could do that. Or as long as I'm on this bout schedule page, I could go ahead and hit this print brackets button. And it actually brings me to the same print menu. I can just select all and select all, or I could check off whichever ones I wanted. I hit print. I'm going to mark them as printed. And then this comes up, and then I would, of course, do a print preview, send those to the printer, and away we go with that. You will notice, if I come back here, the different colors. And so you'll notice that these were red before, and I missed telling you about that. But anything that's red has had a change to it. It means that there's a result entered typically. You'll know that those are the ones to go back and print again from here. And then you also will notice when a bracket ends and it's completed, it'll turn green in the background. And you'll know that in that case you can give out awards or release the wrestlers, or whatever finishing a bracket might mean to your particular tournament. I would also print my bout sheets from here. I would maybe do this on a round basis, but I might even just do a set of mats at a time. So in a round robin, you could theoretically print all of your bout sheets at once because you know all of the bouts that are coming. So I could print by mat. I could maybe print certain rounds. Maybe I just want all my round ones. I could do something like that. In my case, let's just say I'm going to print everything, all my bouts. I would come here. I could select them all, or I could just select certain bouts. And of course, print selected bouts. Hit the print, and again, away we go. And I could print those bout sheets out, get those out to the mats, and you would be off and running. Once you print those, of course, these will change to printed, and then you'll be able to know which ones are printed and which ones still need to be printed down the road. And so the bout sheets are out, and your wrestling gets started, and then your bout sheets get filled out, and they come back to either you at the head table, maybe you have another room, however you're handling that. But in any case, I'm going to go to the bout entry. You can also find this in the operating menu, take you to the exact same place. And it brings us to this interface. And all I'm going to do from here is I'm going to insert my bout number. And another good reason for having bout numbers is that if I didn't have those, I would probably have to search by a weight class and an age group. In our case, if I just want to do bout 203, maybe that's my first one to come back. And I do this. Let's say that this was the winner. I just click on him. I could change the winner there, and maybe he won by decision. And let's say here, I'll make an error. Let's say I had a decision and I said it was 9-0, which we all know is actually a major. If I go to save that, the system's going to say, wait a minute, that's not right. It should really be a major decision. So either I need to adjust this, which maybe this is supposed to be 7, or I could change the win type as well. And then I save that. My next bout, let's say it's 203. I click go, bring that up. Oh, maybe I did 203. 204 we'll try. And I hit go. I picked that's one of our wrestlers, so I better pick him as a winner. And maybe, because he's ours, we're going to say he got a pin, and let's say it was in 46 seconds. And I'll click save, and then it moves on. That message just told me that that bracket has all of its bouts done for that round. I can check this if I go to my bout schedule. You'll see now that here's a bracket that has all the bouts done for that round. And this screen will tell me that the white ones are, kind of out there, ready to be printed, or maybe even they're printed if they show here. If you see yellow here, which we won't because we're all round robins, of course that's going to mean that those are bouts that are waiting for results. So it might be a semifinal match and we're still in the quarterfinals. We just don't know who those wrestlers are yet. And then what I'm going to do is quickly, I want to show you kind of how we can quickly add matches to your tournament. So you can keep clicking on these in the bout entry and you can enter results, but when you're testing out your tournament, that becomes a little bit laborious. So I can just go to the left menu and again click on operations, and you only see this on the testing site. When I come here, I can do this function called enter bouts. And I'm just going to do the maximum match ID of 2. And again, that match ID of 2 is going to take me through 2 bouts in each bracket, which in my case in the 4-mans is going to take me through a round. You could also use a max bout number there, or a bout number range. But I'm just going to enter. And then if I come back to my bout schedule, you'll see that quickly we have these bouts that got entered there. And so that's a quick way to make sure. This is a good way for your people that are just starting out to see what this bout schedule is going to look like. They're going to know right where they are in the tournament. If I go back down to the bottom of this page, you'll see that in my tournament, because I have all the mats right now, there's 132 bouts. I'm 48 through. We have 84 left. And so that's a good way for you to start kind of gauging how much time you have left, how long your tournament's going to run, and those sorts of things. At this point, I could print new bout sheets if I haven't done so. The other thing I can do from here, oh, there's a yellow one. Didn't even notice. So there's one. Yeah, that's a 2-man best of 3. So our system's not sure yet whether or not we need this 3rd match. If somebody wins 2, then you wouldn't need it. So there's a good example of the yellow. Let's say, for instance, that there was an error on a bracket. I could come to this bout schedule. I could find that bracket. And there are other ways to get there, of course. But if I click on the bracket and view it or open it, I could come back and make changes to a bracket. So let's say, for instance, this was the wrong time. So if I click on that bout number, this opens it. Let's say Brett won, but it was actually in the 2nd period. So it was a 1 minute and 21 second pin. I could click save, and you'll see that that will update as well. Once I click that, you'll see how that updates on the bracket. So making bracket changes, very simple to do. And at this point, I'll just kind of continue down throughout my tournament. Continue to wrestle bouts, enter bouts, and keep printing to make sure that we're kind of keeping going. So a couple other items before we kind of just open this up and talk a little more and I answer the questions that you might have. 2 ways for team scoring, 2 ways to score in a team tournament. So the first would be to manually select the wrestlers that score from each team. And that might be the case if you're keeping team points in an open tournament. I can do that by I can go to any of these menus and I go to the teams page. And let's say that with this Adams Friendship team, actually this is a good example. So you notice that there are 0 points. We're 1 round through the tournament, so we know that there's probably team points out there. But if I click on this team, you'll see that there are no scoring participants on this team. I could go ahead and check mark a couple of these guys and click this score selected wrestlers. And that's going to move them up to this part. It's going to move them above this line and then in the scoring team members. And if I go back to my teams page, now you're going to see that this Adams Friendship team has some points based on what was already entered for results. Another way to, so that's it. So maybe in this case, you're saying, okay, every team gets to pick 5 wrestlers and they do that ahead of time. I could just check on the wrestlers and go from there. So that's one way to do it. Of course, that's when you have a big tournament. That's pretty time intensive. But we have something in our system called Score Best, and this is a pretty slick feature. I'm going to come back to my Teams page, and it's in this drop down right here, and it's called Score Best. So again, I'm on the Teams page. Go to this drop down, and I click that one. I could score this by group If I don't specify a group, then it's going to score everybody, and that's what I want to do. And I just invoke that operation. And so in my case, I'm going to, this says enter the number of wrestlers you want to score for each team. I'm going to pick 10 from each team, but I'm also going to say that I can only score 1 wrestler from each team in a weight class. And so if, that's just going to kind of sort that out. And I click continue, and then now you'll see that my team scores got populated. And if we go back to this Adam's Friendship team, you'll see that it picked the wrestlers that had the most points at this point in the tournament. You will want to run this every now and then. You have to run it occasionally. This is selecting scoring wrestlers, and let's say that this guy gets a couple of pins. He maybe should be the next wrestler. So you just come back to this team page and run this function again. If you wanted to score everybody, I would do the score best, and I would go 99 for the number of wrestlers from each team, and then 99 for the number of wrestlers for each weight. And that really just opens it. It's kind of opens that window. I click continue, and now you see that those points are quite a bit higher because it's scoring everybody. So if I go back to Adams, you'll see that everybody is now scoring. So if you want to score that way, that's a good way to do it. If I do need to adjust a team score, I could go back to a team, and let's just stick with this Adams team. So I could click on this Adams team. It brings me to this page, and then, oh, actually I was just there, but I could make a team point adjustment. So there's a few things in here I could do. I'm going to make a team point adjustment. I invoke that operation, and let's say there's a -1 for, I don't know, misconduct. And I could add that, and that gets added to their team page. And then now when I go back to them on the teams, I should have kind of noticed how many points they had, but they'd be 1 less now because I deducted it. I could find out who's scoring points by clicking on their points in this column. That opens up this. It shows me that, Blade here, he's got 4 placement points, but he doesn't have any advancement or any activity points. And then he's got 4 total points. And I could actually break that down a little further by clicking on his points, and it basically says, what he's done. You'll also notice that here's my -1 for the misconduct. So that's how you can make team point adjustments and break down those scores as well. And then the last thing I want to just mention that is if you have a wrestler that's ejected, let's say that on Adams's team that this boy he gets thrown out of the tournament or something like that, you could go in and delete him out, but that's going to wipe out anything he's done in the bracket, and that really affects other wrestlers as well. But maybe you just want to make him non-scoring. I could go ahead and click add to non-scoring, and that would pull him off. Another thing you may even do is if you didn't want his name to appear, you could just change his name to like forfeit, or bye-bye or something like that. And that would go ahead and solve that situation as well. So, okay, I think that covers pretty much everything that I was planning to go through from, I guess, the course standpoint. I think at this point, if you guys want to just ask some questions, I can leave the recording running, or if you wanted to shut down the recording, we could talk off camera or off recording as well. So it's up to you guys. Can you guys still hear me? Don, are you still there?
Yeah, I was muted. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you, so we muted it. Yeah,
not at all. No, it did sound quiet, so that
yeah,
that's all right.
Yeah, we were real quiet. But no, we were watching. I really don't have any questions at this point on this. This was a real good review and stuff.
Yep. Yeah, and I know you guys have been through a lot of that stuff too. So, and this would be maybe a good review for others in your group too. Maybe come back to the video and things like that, and just kind of. It's kind of nice when you can run through beginning to end kind of in one sitting there sometimes too.
Well, I had not gone through the importing the wrestlers and all of that yet through the testing site myself personally. So that was a real big help for me, real big.
Good. Well, I'm glad to hear that. That part comes in handy when you really want to see the grouping wizard in action. That way, because you get teams in there, and you also get that separation criteria, and you can go in and add some of those manually, but that becomes kind of again, it becomes kind of tedious to do that. So yeah, importing, that's a nice feature in the testing site.
So this time of year we have small numbers, so we're doing a bunch of scrambles.
Yep.
So tomorrow I'm going to be reviewing a scramble and doing that. I got one coming up this weekend. And,
and I think we do have a scramble pairings one. That might even be next week already. I'd have to look ahead. I think that might be next week.
I watched the demo video on that.
Okay.
And one of the guys here had one of them last year. But
Mm-hmm.
that's basically how we started out 12, 14 years ago. We call it just an old folder system. And we just did the round robin, and all the coaches got together, and they figured out who needs to go against who. And then we sat down. All the coaches wrote out the bout sheets and the brackets, and then we posted. It took about an hour for us all to do that. and I like this a whole lot better because you can really zip through it a lot quicker.
Yeah, and that kind of came from, I guess, our personal experience too. And we used to match them up with note cards, and some people did that too. It's the old note card method, similar to what you did.
That's exactly what we did.
You slid them around, and it really just replaces that. And the one thing that the scramble pairings does is it takes the coaches, bias, whether we want to be biased or not. Those are our kids, and we fight for them. And this kind of takes those out, and it makes those matchups really competitive. So yeah, we're excited about the scramble pairings too. So, and I know you guys are running a lot of them down there, and we'll make sure we stay in touch and make sure everything goes smoothly.
Hey, quick question. This is Daryl.
Sure.
Hey, when you have the separation criteria, schools or clubs, will it, separate them? Like if you have, like I saw the bracket you had in your test, it had two kids from the same club in a 53-pound grouping.
Yep.
Will it automatically separate them, or you have to go in and manually separate them if it's part of the criteria?
It will. The team is always a part of that separation, and so probably numbers in here drove that. I don't think I have anybody left in here to bracket, but the team will always be included, and it'll try and separate kids from the same team. So it's going to look at group them, I guess. It's going to group them and try and keep kids from the same team apart, but then it's going to use those parameters on the weight difference and also the separation. So there will be times if, how do I describe this? Our system will never override the weight tolerance. It won't let that happen. So that's why sometimes you're going to see 3-man brackets on either end of it, or maybe sometimes in the middle. But it will override, and it will throw out, if it has to, the team and also the separation criteria. And I shouldn't say it throws out the separation criteria, but if we look at our separation criteria here, so it's going to try and group, again, using that weight tolerance. It won't go outside of that. It's going to try and group all the excellence from separate teams together, and that's a perfect world. If it doesn't have an excellent, it's going to go try and grab a good. If it doesn't, it's going to grab an average. If not, it's going to grab a beginner. So that's kind of how that works.
That's good.
I think it's going to be awesome.
Yep, absolutely. No, I think it should work well.
We're going to try one on Friday night.
Yeah, we're gonna do one this Friday night over at
keep your phone handy.
William Blunt. No, we're gonna try and be prepared for it.
That's good. That's what we like to hear. But
hey,
as you know, if you have questions, just call us. We'll call you right back. So
I appreciate it.
You betcha.
Thanks.
You bet, guys. Yeah, if you have anything else, be sure to let us know. Okay.
Okay. Bye-bye.
All right. Thanks, guys. Have a good night.